So my name is Tenley Warburton, and I've been a 4-H member for about 10 years now. I am the South Region Ambassador. Last year I had the pleasure of competing at provincial public speaking in 4-H, and I placed first, and 4-H Alberta sent me to nationals over in Toronto. And And over in Toronto, I was able to soak up the Royal Winter Fair and place third overall there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And we're going to get rolling with our first speaker. Issy Dykstra is a 14-year-old, and she is with the North 40 Mile 4-H Club. Issy is in her 6th year with 4-H. Issy Dykstra, Road to Equality, Road to Equality, Issy Dykstra.
Imagine you're a woman living in Canada in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Your job is to keep house, but what if you find yourself wanting more? Thank you, Madam Chairperson, family, friends, and guests. The Canadian Women's Rights Movement began in 1867, the time the British North American Constitution Act was written. The Women's Rights Movement is a group that fought peacefully for equality for women and girls alike. They helped women be a part of public affairs both equally and politically. Before the Constitution was even written, women living in that time period didn't think themselves equal to the men around them as we do today. Most, like women nowadays, would have been more focused on building a future for their families as well as themselves. But as time wore on, women began craving the same rights as men. In the years leading up to Confederation, the women of Canada began pressuring the government to give them the same rights. Why? Because they felt they had more to contribute to their country than just founding social organizations and helping others in their communities. So, when the Founding Fathers drew up the Bean Act in 1867, they didn't give women what they wanted. At the time, anything such as politics, government, and public affairs were considered a man's world. Men were determined to keep women away from political and public happenings, while women were just determined to take their place in society. The real fight all started in Winnipeg, Manitoba, when a crowd of men and women gathered outside the Manitoba Legislative Assembly on January 27, 1914. Their reason to be there was to present the case of women's rights. Their leader, Nellie McClung, who would later be known for her role in the groundbreaking Persons case, asked, and I quote, "Have we not brains to think, hands to work, hearts to feel, and lives to live? Do we not bear our part in citizenship? Did we not help build an empire? Give us our due." End quote. They delivered a petition supporting women's rights, which contained over 40,000 signatures of both men and women. It was delivered by Premier T.C. Norris to the 15th Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. After the petition, the bill to change the Manitoba Election Act followed. On January 28, 1916, the Lieutenant Governor, the highest-ranked officer in the province, gave women living in Manitoba the right to vote and to become candidates for provincial elections. 2 months later, on March 14, Saskatchewan passed the same act. Alberta followed, passing the Equal Suffrage Statutory Law Amendment Act on April 19th. Women living in those 3 provinces could now vote and participate in provincial elections. Then, on March 24, 1918, all women over age 21, except for those of Native and Asian descent, were granted the right to vote in federal elections. It didn't matter if their province didn't approve of suffrage. Quebec didn't give women the right to vote in provincial elections until 1940. Yes, women had the vote, but were they considered equals to men? No. In the government's eyes, women weren't considered persons just because they could vote. They still couldn't even be on the Canadian government or Senate. This was when the groundbreaking Persons case came in. Meet these women. They're the founders of the women's rights movement. They're also known as the Famous Five. Their names are Emily Murphy, leader and founder, Irene Parlby, Henrietta Mer Edwards, oldest member, Louise McKinney, and my favorite, Nellie McClung, the youngest member. These women did more than just found the women's rights movement. They helped women get the vote, but they are most famous for the Persons case. On August 27, 1927, the 5 women gathered in Edmonton, Alberta. It was here that they signed an important letter to the Governor-General asking if government had the power to make women persons. The case was taken to the Supreme Court of Canada, Canada's highest court. 5 weeks of discussion, and the answer was no, but the Famous Five didn't give up that easily. They then took the case to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in Great Britain. 2 years later, on October 18, 1929, Lord Sankey, Lord Chancellor of Great Britain, stood up and said, and I quote, "The exclusion of women from all public offices is a relic of days more barbarous than ours. And to those who would ask why the word person should include females, the obvious answer is, why should it not?" End quote. The person's case affected Canada by opening a door full of new opportunities for Canadian women, increasing their participation in public and in politics, as well as more job choices with higher pay for both women and girls outside of household activities. Fast forwarding to today, by looking at what Canada has accomplished, how does it compare to other countries? Iran and Afghanistan, for example. Women living in these countries aren't treated equally or respectfully at all. There are laws saying and controlling what they as women can and can't do. Let's look at them. First, let's look at Afghanistan. In 2021, the Taliban entered and succeeded in taking over Afghanistan again. Since then, they have seized all rights of women and girls, saying that they can't go to school, drive, or work. There are also no women allowed in cabinet or in government. Women in Iran get half the rights men get. Unlike Afghan women, Iranian women can drive, go to school, and work. However, in Iran today, only men are allowed to be part of the government and are considered the decision makers of their households. Compared to the two other countries mentioned, Canadian women are very fortunate to live in a place where both men and women are treated as equals. However, not all women were equal at once. In the 1960s, Indigenous women and women of other minorities were finally recognized along with their peers and were given the right to vote. All this work led to women's rights changing into human rights. In 1982, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was written, passed, and signed in the House of Commons. The Charter states that all citizens in Canada are equal regardless if male or female. You're probably wondering, what are my thoughts on this? Well, I, for one, think that equality is a good thing to have, and that everyone, and I mean everyone, is equal, whether you're a man or woman. Yes, it was hard, but at the same time, for those women, it was probably worth seeing what they had accomplished after all the hard work and effort they put in to make it happen. If they hadn't done what they did, the road to equality wouldn't have happened as fast, and we wouldn't have the diversity we see today. My sources are as presented.